Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Maybe Next Year. The season's over, and Scott and Paul and I are just sort of chitting and chatting away. We realized we better hit record. My name is Frank.
I'm Scott.
I'm Paul.
We were, going over Christmas plans and trying to get together. And could we watch a football game? And whose holiday party at work got canceled because the workers don't like management at the moment. But I'll tell you which workers do like management. And those are those workers for the Buffalo Bills, because even though they lost 27-23, I'd have to say I don't have any sense that there's a team, that the team itself is crumbling. We'll go through the Jets and Bills recap. This, by the way, did the final mathematical number on Maybe Next Year. Paul and I called it last week, but this is in fact, now the season is brain dead as well as the rest of the body.
Right. So if you have a 3-week injury, you're on injured reserve right now.
Right. It's done now. Which we'll get to those too. Bills sitting at 4-9, which shapes up nicely for Paul. Paul gets to go first because it's shaping up nicely for his 5 or 6 win season, which he stuck to his guns even when I was saying it'd be a miracle if they won 2 or 3 games. But here we are. They lost a close game to the Jets. They lost a stupid game to the Jets. How do you want to characterize this game?
I think close and stupid are both accurate. It was funny reviewing. One of the things I do to prepare notes for the podcast is I go back to the conversations I'm having on Twitter, and just to watch the gradual regression of joy from the first quarter on through the fourth quarter. In the first quarter, I was talking about what an accomplishment it would be if they could put the Jets away pretty much by halftime or halfway through the third quarter or so, and that would really cement them as a better team. And instead, the exact opposite of that happened, and they just totally looked really, really bad. And this is, I will start with the pessimism, because I was, as Frank noted on Twitter, I was just full of pessimism after the game. I think what aggravated me about this game is I kind of looked at the Bills to now as a team that I felt was mediocre. Closing in on mediocre. I legitimately thought this could be a 6-7 win team. As the season progressed, I thought this could be a 6 or 7 win team this year. They've got winnable games here. They've got winnable games there. The reason it hit me a bit is because this game, they're just bad. And that's why this game I found to be as discouraging as it was to me, because we didn't see a lot of positives other than some good stuff from Josh Allen, which we'll talk about. But we also saw Sam Darnold lead a game-winning TD drive while Allen's attempt ended with an interception. And I just had this concern, like, watching the game, I'm thinking, are there too many holes to fill in to be a contender next year? You looked at how substandard this offensive line is. Deion Dawkins is the only one who had a positive grade on Sunday's game. He still gave up a brutal, costly sack at one point, though there was only his pressure he gave up all game, but still, that was a bad spot to give it up in. You had Zay Jones elevated to officially the number 1 receiver role, and then vanishes and turns into Zay 2K17 with his drops and bad routes and everything else he was doing. You had the copious amounts of penalties that we saw during the course of this game, as you hear the penalty siren going off in the background as I discuss them. So it was really a frustrating game to watch, because this was a team they just dismantled weeks before. And I will say, the second time teams meet, as long as it's not the Patriots and it's an interdivisional game, those games tend to get closer because you're not surprising anyone anymore, and you're each knowing what weaknesses you're capable of attacking. So we all did expect a closer game when we made our picks last week, but I felt the Bills clearly had a more talented team than the Jets. I felt that they were better equipped, just in terms of, lining up well for the future. And now after watching, Darnold come through in the end in a game and losing at home to the Jets, I was definitely, left in a downer mood after this game. On the positive side, you had the performances of, Robert Foster and Isaiah McKenzie again. Looks like, you have a little bit better receiver depth for next season than you thought you might, and it's very reasonably priced depth. The defense, again, I was disappointed that the only times they seemed to give up, big plays or sniffing yards were when it mattered most, including Zay Jones, who had a really tough game. So that was discouraging to me. But otherwise, the defense played very well. They need to get more of a pass rush. That was feeble. So that, they mentioned none of the 4 that they've signed in the offseason or during the season, which would be the Phillips brothers, Jordan Harrison and Murphy and Ludalele, did anything in terms of pressuring the quarterback. It was all, the original four of Hughes, Alexander, Lawson, and Williams. So, that was disappointing. But otherwise, the linebacking core played well before Milano died. And then,
he's alive.
He's alive. He's alive. And then Trey White, was good up until the, last quarter, which is unfortunately when you need him most. I wouldn't even talk about special teams because I feel like Scott needs to go off on something. So I'm just going to leave special teams alone, and we can let Scott handle that.
I think to summarize Paul quickly, Scott, I think what we're hinting on, we haven't had one of these in a while where we thought the Bills could win and should win, and then they didn't.
Yes.
Because we spent a lot of time thinking they can't win, and then they can't, and then they don't, or they do, and it's kind of surprising. What are your thoughts on that and or the game? And of course, you've been teed up for special teams, which is better than most of special teams managed
to tee up.
To tee up anything.
So briefly, I want to point out that I'm just again apropos of nothing, and we're doing this podcast and we're not going to edit it, so who cares? Wisconsin's basketball scored 60 points here in the first half, in the first 17 minutes. There have been many. I think we won a game earlier this year with scoring about 55 points. So I don't know what's going on with this team right now. It's kind of anyway. Back to the Bills, which are not fun to watch. So I think I agree with Paul. It's nice to have a little receiver depth. Have to go out and get 4 new wide receivers in the offseason. I don't think we're going to have to do that. I think there's enough guys there to make this work, so that's a good sign. But other than that, I feel like special teams is its own segment. I feel like we should go to Frank and do special teams. Yeah. But I think getting to specifically the team itself and the level of talent, I do get very concerned because I think we all had a bit of mirage of that they're playing better and that they had kind of looked competitive in the Dolphins game. They won the game before that against, I forget who, Jacksonville. And I think we're forgetting again that this is even if we had won the Dolphins game and won this game, which were winnable games, I mean, they came down to the end. Either one of them could have obviously the Dolphins game was very close to being won. The Jets game, certainly a couple breaks here or there at the end of the game could have gone to the Bills' way. Even if they had won those, this still was a team that lost by 40 to the Raisins at the beginning of the season.
To the Raisins
and the Raisins.
Damn California Raisins.
They would have had three game winning streak against teams that were under 500, which is not exactly the stuff of champions.
Right.
Now, when you take the fact that they actually lost 2 of those 3 games, now we really are getting to Paul's point, and I agree that the talent level is really concerning here. And I do get concerned about the amount of things because it's, to me, if you invested all your draft capital and all of your free agency dollars on making the offense better, which I think we would all agree is kind of where there are the most holes. I would still have concerns about the defense next year.
Yeah.
If we were playing San Diego or Los Angeles or Kansas City in a playoff game, I'm terrified of what that defense is going to do because our defense is built on basically the rope-a-dope of we'll just keep them in front of us and hang on for 4 quarters and hopefully they don't score more than 28 points. That doesn't really work against a team that's actually A, trying to win a playoff game, and B, if your offense is not able to kind of keep up with that team as the game goes on.
Right.
If they're trying to come back against that defense and trying to take big chunks, yeah, maybe we'll get a turnover or 2, but those aren't also guaranteed. So I feel like there are a lot of holes on this team. I have a little faith in McDermott on the defensive side that he can make enough. He's found these little kind of Teron Johnson, Matt Milano kind of low round values where we can maybe sneak another starter out of this upcoming draft or free agency. We need a second cornerback. We've talked about that. Trey White did not have his best game on Sunday, but it's still there were still enough opportunities for Darnold to kind of pick up the thing. And then the last thing I don't know if we want to do a whole nother thing on Allen too, but I was talking to the guys at work today, a couple of the Bills fans around the office, and the bar for Josh Allen is Sam Darnold. If he is not better than Sam Darnold, then we're explicit rating on, we're fucked.
Unless it turns into Marino Kelly too, where maybe Marino's slightly better than Kelly, but that was okay. But
I guess
the rest of the Bills talent.
Yeah, I guess that was okay, but again, it's still not great, certainly. And I would say that's probably not where we're headed with these two. I'm not sure if they turn into Kelly and Marino, then yes, I guess I'll take that. But it seems like we're pretty far away from that based on where we were on Sunday. And at minimum, Brady, we just have to hope he retires soon. Clearly, neither one of them is going to be better than Brady anytime soon. And Miami's kind of a house on fire to a little bit. Who knows if it's going to be Tannehill next year, if he's even going to be healthy enough. So that really just means us and the Jets, who had kind of cashed in their chips this season to get the blue chippers. And so that's going to be the bar that Josh Allen's measured against for the rest of his career. And Sunday he came up, you could say that maybe he had better stats a little bit than Darnold. But even then,
I want to say quite a bit, but go ahead.
But, Darnold got the win, and, I'm not sure that there's a great amount. I'm not sure there's a great amount more of talent on the Jets than there's on the Bills at this point.
I'll say this. I mean, if you compare season stats for Darnold and Allen, Darnold's played 10 games, Allen's played 9. Certainly Darnold has more passing yards, slightly better completion percentage at 55%. 12 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, though. I mean, he's thrown 15 interceptions. Yeah. Allen's thrown 9. I can't even. Yeah, 5 touchdowns to 9. So neither one of them's doing great. The difference, of course, and some of the conversation about Allen is about his ability to run. And I don't know. I said this on Twitter. I know that there's like a urgency amongst like all the mini GMs and coaches out there to say, well, we really need him to stay in the pocket and pass. I don't need him to stay in the pocket and pass right now. I don't need him to do that. There are no receivers on this team. I am happy for him to just run and get yards. It's hard to argue with a guy who can run for, like, I think he's averaging like 8 yards a carry. He's more than 100 yards per game in back-to-back games. And so it's hard to turn down those yards if they're there. And so even though Darnold might be ahead of him as a passer, I think that was already a known quantity. I think when you were drafting Josh Allen, you were drafting a more raw prospect that needed more time. And so, I don't want to pretend like he's quote unquote, like he's good as in without a qualified, good for a rookie or good for a guy that was meant to be a caricature of a quarterback by most experts. He's still a qualified good to me. He's not unqualified good, but I'm happy with where he's at. And I don't have reason to think that he definitely will get better, but I also don't have reason to think he definitely won't get better and that other talent around him won't help him. And I think that some of the best hope that you have that there will be better talent is, first of all, the huge amount of money that's coming when next year with the salary cap. And second of all, that they have gravitated towards players culling the receiver core and just getting faster, younger guys in. They don't seem to be afraid to throw the ball deep. He has...
In fact, to emphasize your point there, Frank, I believe Josh Allen leads the league in terms of average yards in the air per throw. So he's throwing deeper than anyone else.
And I can hear people saying now, and they're right, and he's not completing a lot of those passes. And even if you adjust for his drops, he's still kind of down there. He's also played 9 games, and he's on probably the most talent devoid offense in the league, amongst the most talented offenses in the league.
So only Arizona may be able to argue with us there.
Right.
But otherwise, no one else.
Even Cleveland kind of, I don't know, maybe, but Cleveland, I think that, Baker Mayfield, the quarterback I wanted, between Mayfield and Rosen, like he's sort of looking like a special talent right now. I'm glad that Scott brought up the defense and this rope-a-dope defense, because I've been thinking about this. But unlike Scott, I wonder if that's just not the future of defense now, because I think that we really are in an age of, it's an arms race, and we're not going to build Star Wars in the sky to shoot down the missiles from the other country so much as we're just going to have to build more missiles and point them at the other team. And the idea is your defense then, if you accept the fact that you're in an unprecedented offensive era of football, you have to necessarily accept that part of that means defenses aren't as good as they used to be. Gone are the days of, in fact, holding a team to 14, 18, 20 points and winning, or having a shutdown defense. Should they be able to shut down the Jets? Probably. But if you're in that game with Kansas City, I think your best bet is to have a defense that is looking to create turnovers, because you're not going to be able to stop them all day. You simply just the rules are set up such that the talent, even if it's equal, it's never going to be fair to the defense, because we as human beings and football fans want to see scoring, and that's what the league has built itself towards. So you're going to have to build a defense that does something different, that accepts that, okay, we're going to give up yards, we're going to try and limit points, and more importantly, we're going to try and make turnovers. And I think that's the kind of defense that they're doing. So I think it could definitely go up and down. It's certainly fair to have question marks. They have put some absolute turds up this year, just like they did last year. But I think that might just be part and parcel of defenses. And if the approach to the wide receivers this year, getting faster, getting guys who work with Allen is the idea, and you're looking to actually score more points, then maybe it'll work. That's a lot of maybes. That's a lot of stuff down the field. So we don't have to, argue about whether that is the case or isn't the case right now. The game to me was frustrating. Allen I don't want to say Allen improved every week. I don't necessarily think Allen looked better this week than last week, but he didn't look demonstrably worse. I feel like his
Though is there a victory in us saying, well, he didn't look demonstrably worse, and that's the good debate. I was on for some of I was on Bills and Beers this past week, and right before I got off the air, they asked me, okay, you have to categorize Josh Allen's game as good or bad. You can't do anything in between. What do you say? And I struggled with it for a while, and I said he didn't have a good game because I noted the 3 turnovers as my primary logic. And then when I went back and listened to their whole podcast, they were really dropping F-bombs in this debate. They were told each other's throw on whether it was a good or bad game. So it's kind of interesting. Like, it wasn't really either good or bad. It was right. The question is you posed, Frank, and then I'll shut up and let you continue is he going to continue making this progression? And is this, was this part of the progression, or was this a bad game?
Yes, and I want to put it this way, and then we'll move on. I weigh myself every day. Every morning I weigh myself in the morning, because if I don't, then I just forget to, and then I end up have much heavier than I want to be. And what you have to do when you weigh yourself every day, this ties in, is realize that between water weight and what you ate last night and when the last time you pooped was, it's going to go up. Even if you're on a steady down, even if you're losing weight, even if you're going in the direction you want to go, it's going to have a little bit of variance from day to day. It's going to go up a little, it's going to go down a little, then it's going to go up a little more, but a little, not as much as last time, and then down a little more. And so in that way, that's why I don't really care if Josh Allen, on Sunday, had a better game than he did the Sunday before, because the idea is that improvement isn't a straight line anyway. It's going to go up and down a little. There's going to be variance. And the real question is, by the end of the year and then into next year, can we figure out, who this guy is? But that certainly is a question mark. I don't want to close the book on it any more than I want to open the book on it. It's just, the book is there, and it's sitting the way it's sitting, and it can sit there a little bit longer, especially now that the season's over. And thank you. I hope we talked before the show. You said you had a nice time on Bills with Beers. We're very happy that they had us, and we'd like to thank all 3 of their listeners that came over from that podcast to this podcast. So
right, and we got a 4th one during this podcast. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So we're just expanding the base, guys. Yeah. Anyway, can we let's 3 stars this game and get the hell out of here.
We did ignore special teams, and as much as I want to ignore special teams,
we should talk about special teams.
Right?
Really? Okay. Terrible.
None of us want to, but it's one of those where there's kind of an obligation, because
they're terrible, and Danny Crossman's going to lose his job at the end of the year. End of the story.
All right, that's Frank's
else.
Scott, where's your?
I know. Okay, so I have a question then, Frank. How much do you put of it on McDermott for hiring a bunch of, and Bean for bringing a bunch of guys who play special teams only, and the team still being this bad on special teams?
I put a fair amount of it, whatever the fair amount is. I don't know. To me, special team. Look, they've had some issues with special teams, right? We can definitely say losing the punter to injury and then replacing him, I think that has affected the kicking game because he's the holder. And, that's one tiny part of it. But I don't know, like special teams, how do I want to say this? If they had a better offense, special teams wouldn't matter as much. That's what I want. I want them to have a good offense, because then if they have a good offense, the special teams don't matter as much.
Well, that's true. But when the defense is in a position where, okay, good luck, you're going to go out and start this drive. By the way, they're at our 7, and it will be 1st and goal when you take the field, as happened to them during the game on.
Yeah, that's an exceptional circumstance. Even for this terrible special teams, they still managed to kick the ball down the field more often than not. And you're going to miss less field goals if you're taking less field goals because you're scoring more touchdowns. So, like, on the list of, you know what? I guess I'm being pissy on this, and I'm sorry. Let me put it this way.
This makes for good broadcasting. We can be as pissy as we want.
Like, did special teams cost them this game? Sure. Let's just say it did. Did special teams cost them last week? Sure. Is special teams going to cost them the
Super Bowl
season?
25? Maybe.
No. It's special teams. Special teams
cost them the playoff game against Tennessee in '99.
Yeah. Right. Well, bad officiating in '99. Yes. Is special teams the reason they're a bad football team? No, it's not. It's like if the banana is bad in the banana split sundae and the ice cream's bad, the fact that the cherry and the whipped cream is also sour isn't really the point to me. That's my and please, I will let both of you or either of you have the last word on this, because I've said my piece on special teams.
I feel like, Paul, you're over to you.
Yeah, I will. I'll be quick on this. I think one thing which stood out which I thought of, you cut a bunch of players. Well, you had a bunch of roster changes the past week. Holmes, your special teams leader, more than 70% of snaps off the roster. And when you have a team that doesn't have much depth because you have $70 million in dead cap money, then you're going to have a lot of guys on special teams who are your bottom of the barrel guys. And that really showed. And so that could be encouraging that once they build more depth, it will help. But because a lot of the players, I watched some of the film on this, they were doing what they call funneling, where the players on the ends on kick returns were just going to the middle of the field. And that's that should never happen. That should be fixed. The concerns with, Hauschka, hip injuries, short kickoffs, kickers can go. Remember, we loved Dan Carpenter. He was the man. We loved Ryan Lindell before him. He was the man. And when they hit the wall, they hit the wall. And that was it. And their careers were over. So I just want to make sure that hopefully Hauschka's hip injury doesn't derail him too much. But special teams does become a big concern. And yes, I think it will get better as they build more roster depth. I did note they had a penalty on special teams on Jordan Poyer on a kick return, which I remember back in the days when the Bills gave up multiple touchdowns to, I think it was Chad Morton of the Jets in the same game, including a walk-off kickoff return in overtime. After that, if the kickoff mattered, they would put Antoine Winfield and Nate Clements on kick coverage. So the Bills can kind of do that for important kickoffs and have Trey White and Poyer and Hyde covering guys who can actually tackle on the field. But, I do worry about special teams long-term because these mistakes have not cleaned themselves up this year, and it will cost some games in the future if they don't clean them up.
All right. 3 stars.
Okay. So we will start 3 stars. I don't think there's any honorable mentions in this game because literally no one was.
There was no honor.
Good. Yeah, find 4 good players in this game. That is a tall order.
It is. It's not. I'm looking at the stats here. There's not a lot of people I'm super confident about.
Well, I even thought you could start with some Jets offensive linemen because they did so well in pass protection, but the Jets also did nothing in the running game because their linemen couldn't block. So you can't give it to a Jets lineman. The Bills got dominating the trenches. So then you're looking at the stat sheet, and good. I'm glad this is your segment because I got nothing.
Yeah, so I'm going to start 3 stars. I'm going to start with Sam Darnold, 16 to 24, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Certainly not typical 3-star material. I think we can say that fairly confidently. Did have a couple nice throws on the last drive. That I think, and 1 nice throw on I think the third touch. I forget it was the second touchdown that they scored, or yeah, I think it was the second touchdown they scored, the first one in the fourth quarter, where he was buying all that time.
And he got away from Kyle Williams, and that was I said on Twitter, what do you do on that play? You played it fine, but he just made a great play.
Yeah, so that play, the nice throw to Robbie Anderson, who is our second star, 4 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously, for the big catch on the drive, on the game-winning touchdown, as it turned out, that was him, right?
Yes.
That correct? Yes. And then, but then also on the drive leading down there, the great over-the-shoulder throw from Darnold with a nice catch from Robbie Anderson on that. And again, like, enough, I don't want to say he's a great wide receiver. And again, those are not like typical, 3-star statistics, but you got to take what you can get in this game. So I give first star to Robert Foster. Why not? 7 catches, 104 yards. Again, like we were kind of, Paul mentioned earlier, and I seconded, who knows what, there might be a little something here. We've kind of been disappointed with the lack of, whatchamacallit, the lack
receiver
of
depth. Yeah.
Yes, the lack of receiver depth. And I think this shows that maybe there's something there. Oh, and I was also going to say the lack of offensive skill position, or really offensive talent that the front office has acquired to a certain extent. And that really, Zay Jones has been about the best guy we've gotten. And maybe Robert Foster is kind of getting more in that conversation. It's still early. Obviously, again, we've seen flashes in the pan before, but he's had some nice games here. So let's give him a chance, and hopefully he's somebody who can, again, like, he's already kind of at that, he's clearly at that bottom of, that number 4 or 5 receiver level. Now it's a question of whether he's going to take on a bigger role and to kind of get to that number 2 or 3 role where Zay maybe moves into the slot, and that's a little better for him. And then maybe even, ideally you would want him to take over the number 1 role. That's obviously going to be asking a lot, but hopefully there's more for him in the future. So those are your three stars.
Is there a chance that Robert Foster is just good because of how terrible everything else is?
I would say that, but you could then, why didn't Calvin Benjamin get good, or Terrell Pryor, or the others? I mean, Foster is and why isn't Ray McLeod able to find the field? He had 1 offensive snap when literally both McKenzie and Foster got hurt. I do like Robert Foster so far, even if he does just end up being a 4 or 5 guy. Say he's a 4, McKenzie's a 5, and Zay Jones is your 2. Then in the offseason, you're hunting for a 1 and a 3, which, don't get me wrong, is not easy. But I really felt like, okay, they need a 1, 2, 4, and a 5 going into the offseason. So now I'm a little more at ease with them. And I think Foster, that deep speed is, look at Beebe. He was never a great receiver, but he had great deep speed, and that opened things up underneath for Andre Reed and Lofton, and then later Bill Brooks. So I would love if he were the next coming of Don Beebe. That would be totally fine with me.
Yes.
He was a talented guy too. Like, out of high school, he was a high recruit, and then went to Alabama, and then obviously good receivers in Alabama that he was there, playing under: Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, all guys who had been, obviously first-round draft picks, big names in the NFL at this point. So getting playing time behind those guys is not easy anyway. And then there's been, I guess, some questions about motivation. It sounds like, his demotion early this year may have perked him up. So who knows? Maybe that's all someone needed.
Quick update for you. Patrick Mahomes, touchdowns 43, interceptions 11.
Does that count tonight where he's thrown for 2 touchdowns?
No. So 4,300 yards.
I know, because he's on my fantasy team, and I've enjoyed every one of them.
I won't name drop the Twitter person that tweeted at me a list of reasons how we didn't know Josh Allen wasn't going to be as good as Patrick Mahomes. Not going to say that, but someone on there gave me a lot of grief for pointing out how terrible it was that we passed on Patrick Mahomes. It's pretty terrible that we passed on Patrick Mahomes.
I have a series of discussions. It could be good off-season discussions, and the Mahomes one is a good one, because you think on the one side, Patrick Mahomes, look what he's doing. He's got 9 of 14 tonight for 2 touchdowns to add to what Frank just said. But he had a year to sit back and learn the system from the simultaneously underrated and overrated Alex Smith. And, then he gets Andy Reid in his corner to help him out. And he has a ton of talent around him. They can cut Kareem Hunt, and then Williams comes out tonight and already has 48 yards receiving alone. And the Bills just don't have that kind of talent and a first-round pick the next year, so they have to leverage to get Allen in discussion, because we can also say it's Patrick frickin' Mahomes that you passed on. So.
Yeah. No, you can say all those things that you want. That's not the point. The point is that like he would be better than anybody else. So Matt Milano's done, which was sad. He's done for the year, broken fibula. And I hope he recovers. Speaking of Alex Smith, I mean, that's a scary story that like his career might be over. I have not read anything about him possibly. Like, I've only seen career threatening. I haven't seen life threatening.
Right. But the huge concern there, of course, is we haven't heard much, if anything, which means, remember, for those of you who are hockey fans listening to our podcast, which is probably zero of you, but Kyle Okposo of the Sabres had kind of a mystery injury, and he ended up being like really life-threatening stuff. So, you know, these sometimes when things are too quiet like this, I do worry about the player overall, but we'll see.
But that doesn't seem to be Milano. Like he doesn't. I don't think he had nearly the same level of break, and he's just sort of done for the year. So
you hope he can recover from it, because it is a broken fibula still, and they need him to be the player he was this year. You know, next year for the next decade.
They do. He's an excellent young talent, and he was definitely part of the, you know, a really kind of special linebacker. Like he sort of played really well. I think that he sort of. We all know he's good, but I still don't know that he's quite getting the props that he should. Hauschka hit from behind on a field goal attempt, or failed field goal attempt, and you know, just a dirty hit. Period. Have we received any word of whether that player's been fined or if there's been any discipline or anything? I haven't seen anything.
None that I've seen. You know, I was upset about it because I actually tweeted at the player who had the dirty hit.
You did. You name dropped.
I did.
Called out.
That's rare for me to do.
And the Bills themselves on their official Twitter just had like dirty hit, man, or not cool, and they had the GIF of Hauschka getting hit.
Yeah.
So, which is another pretty aggressive move.
Yeah, Anderson tried to defend, said, "Oh, it's just because I'm so much bigger than him. You know, I hit him more from the side. I didn't extend my arm. I really could have plowed him." But he was on the Pat McAfee show. But it was clearly BS, because he still drilled a guy from behind who was, you know. And he said, "Well, Hauschka may have been able to make a play," and I'm like, "Did you see what he tried to do with the slide tackle? Hauschka was not going to make a play.
He was like walking. He wasn't even trying to make the play.
Right. So his hip is sore, although my understanding is that he's going to play on Sunday.
So he didn't practice yesterday. I don't know if he practiced today, so we'll keep an eye on it.
But I think earlier, look, it's Thursday. As of this recording, it's Thursday. You need to kick her in here now if he's not going to play. So I feel like that he's going to, who knows, maybe they'll be more aggressive on offense, and it'll be kind of fun for us, you know, in an experimental way. And Teron Johnson also on the IR. And Paul, who does our agendas so well, his note is that all the running backs are apparently dead. With I would suppose LaShawn McCoy in the Weekend at Bernie's role, like, you know, pretending he's still alive. But you know,
I think that's basically how he's functioned this year. I think it's really Jonathan Silverman and another guy like hoisting LaShawn McCoy through holes, and that's why he's only getting like 1 or 2 yards carry.
It's a pretty tough, and we should talk about it now. I mean, it's here. Yeah. How much is this O-line? How much is him? Obviously, it's probably some of both. But, you know, then you look at Chris Ivory, who's been effective. It's not really fair to compare Allen to him, because Allen's in a different position when he runs. He's generally, there's an open field and he just takes advantage of the yardage that's in front of him, versus, you know, McCoy's never going to have that. He had one excellent run against the Jets, and really that's been it through 13 weeks. But the only other note, and then we'll turn to Scott on this, is that, you know, Bean has been clear, or in his statements, that, you know, McCoy is part of the future next year and he plans on being here, which, you know, nice vote of confidence for a guy who's having a tough year. What do you think of that, Scott? And what do you think of this?
I don't know how we can, I mean, getting, you know, I'll steal one of Frank's talking points. In the modern NFL, I don't know how you can spend the kind of money that we're spending on a running back. even as one as talented as LaShawn McCoy. I mean, I think you're taking a risk when you do that. I think we had some nice years with him, and he's a great player. You know, I don't want to call him a definite Hall of Famer, but he's certainly on the borderline. He's up there in the career yardage numbers. He's a great player. He's a very, you know, in his prime, there's, you know, there was, I'm not sure there was a better running back in the league, but at the same time, this is not, we're not seeing the A game. We're not seeing what we saw before. There's a lot of shake. There's not as much bake. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm going to make it a thing. Like, it's not the proof is not in the pudding. The what is the thing that rises?
The yeast.
These are all sounding like
the dessert.
Masturbation double entendre terms.
Oh, the souffle.
The souffle is not rising. Like, that's the issue. So I don't know.
Unapproved.
This is a ridiculous catch by Keenan Allen. If you guys aren't watching right now.
Yeah, but I've got the game on. It was ridiculous.
So I'm not sure. So both of those reasons, and then the third reason of, again, I get worried about the culture thing, where I'm worried that Beane and McDermott are making decisions based off the fact that LaShawn McCoy is I don't call him a good guy, a guy who they like having on the team because he says the right things in the locker room, or because he practices well. I mean, I'm not sure that I'm when they start talking about things like that in those kind of they're very rare. I feel like to give any kind of. I mean, admittedly, they get asked about McCoy more than probably other guys because he is LaShawn McCoy, but I don't hear them talking about that like other players to a certain extent. And so it's a little concerning that like they don't say that about other guys. Certainly, guys. If you look around at who's been on the team long enough, it has not been that many guys who are around as long as LaShawn has at this point. So I think it's concerning that they feel like they're committed to him. Could there be a role for him on the team next year? Maybe. I don't want to say this is entirely on him, but I would also say they just did it again. I think the thing is I think it is partly on him. There could be a role for him as in like a scat back kind of role where he's catching the ball out of a backfield a lot. I think that would be valuable and useful. I'm not sure that we need to pay someone what we're going to be paying him next year. Unfortunately, I don't have his cap number in front of me.
I pulled it up for you. Yeah. So the good news is next year is his last year under contract.
Right.
His base salary is 6.175. His signing bonus is 2.625. It says the 2019 post June 1 dead cap number is 2.625. His cap hit is $9 million next year. So, which I guess would be the six.
So you're saving $6.5 million if you cut him. Basically, is the short.
Right, because there's this workout bonus and there's his base salary. So you could just cut him next year and pay the 2.65 million, which is really kind of nothing compared to the since he's already
$50 million cap.
Right, and there would be no carryover, I would think, for 2020. So you could just sort of give him his $2.5 million and let him, pursue another team. That said, you are so far under the cap next year that depending on, look, obviously that $6 million might go really well to somebody else. But what you have to remember about that is it's no use to just give it to somebody else. You've got to find somebody worth it. And so the Bills could be looking at it saying well, if we need that $6 million, we could probably, we'll cut him and take somebody else. But if we're not gonna, we might as well keep him, keep the guys on the team happy. Maybe there's some sort of role for him, and we don't have to stress about it now. Paul, do you have please react to Scott's take
Yeah, I won't go on too long because you guys have covered a lot of the good salient points on this. It's a good time, and we've talked about discussing this for weeks, and this seemed like a good week to do it. And I vacillated on this for weeks. There's some weeks I think, oh, he's done, and then the next week he'll make some plays. I'm like, oh, he's still got that burst. And on the plus side for McCoy, he had a great catch in the open field against Miami, shaked and baked a guy, which Scott has known he's lost a bit of the bake this year, but he did both and got to the sideline before the 2-minute warning. So he's still able to make guys miss in open space. The Bills, by every metric, are the worst offensive line in terms of run opening up and in the run game in terms of opening up gaps. You've unanticipatedly lost 2 Pro Bowl interior linemen in the offseason. That's going to hurt. So all of those are factors which say, okay, maybe it's not all is lost with LaShawn. But you got to talk about his age. It's going to be 31 years old going into next season. You also have to talk about the fact that there are clear moments where he does have at least a small hole, and he doesn't, he's not getting through it. He doesn't have that same moves he did last year. So, I'm interested to see what the team does. I have really almost no issue. I shouldn't say no issue because the Bills can screw anything up, but I can be happy in scenarios where he is and where he is not on the team next season. If, you improve the line up front and you draft a running back somewhere in a middle round or even a second or third round for the running back of the future sort of deal, and McCoy has a, 900, hey, even 1,000 plus yards next year, which is not unheard of. He did it last year. Then I'm okay with having him on the roster, and the cap hit, well, bad is not a big deal because it's really the last year of it, and the Bills have a ton of cap space next year. On the other side, if they want to, and I mentioned Le'Veon Bell, which I think is not a ridiculous idea, but I think it's a bad idea if the Bills were to pursue Bell. That's an option if they want to try and get a superstar. If you're going to go get someone in the offseason who you think is going to be your starter next year, you can have McCoy on the team and keep him for depth, and I'm fine with it. You can also say this saves us $6.5 million, so let's move on from him. I do think he's probably a step. The question is how much of one, and I think we're not really going to know until the offensive line gets better. So, hey, we may never actually find out.
Yeah, for me, Le'Veon Bell, I already feel like we're too invested in running back. And so, to me, like the idea of pursuing him, I'd rather just, much like we have with wide receivers this year, explore just cheap options. Like, honestly, like if they take a second or third round pick and use it on a running back, I'm okay with that. I don't hate that idea next year. I don't want them to, take 6th overall, but I feel like that there's so much,
fast. They need receivers and they need linemen too. So
right, and I think
definitely want to see it 6 overall.
Yeah, and I think your value at running back is in pass catching now anyway. It's not, otherwise you can get Chris Ivory to do a halfway decent job for you and, pull him literally off the Jets scrap heap. So I'd rather do like that at running back for a little while rather than go and chase Le'Veon Bell, who undoubtedly is very good, especially when he wants to play. But, also to me, there's almost no chance that Le'Veon Bell is a, quote unquote McDermott type of player. So there is that as well.
It seems like that's a tough sell. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do we feel comfortable with that conference? Do we want to go to Facebook and Twitter and This Day in Bills History?
I think we covered a lot of the McCoy stuff, and I think we hit all the high points. I think it'll be one of those that's going to seep into our discussion every week based on how he's played the previous week, or in this case, if he's played the previous week.
I was looking, and it doesn't seem that there is a difference in the pre and post June 1 thing for McCoy because all of his money is due next year anyway.
Right. So, although sometimes Over the Cap does update it later on, so there might be a difference, but we just don't see it. But we'll find out.
I was reading their article briefly about how that works, and to be honest, I didn't read it closely enough, but it doesn't seem like it would really. The point is, like next year's the last year you're paying LeSean McCoy either way. Scott did the fancy thing on Facebook where you make a picture and then write in the picture, and I don't know how you do that, but I'm very impressed with your tech savvy, Scott, for giving us the picture wording post. That he asked, should the Bills just run a read option with Josh Allen? And Brian says it does take advantage of his mobility. So yes, for the rest of the season, but he wouldn't want it to see it as a gimmick for the rest of the year. If you'd like to, or for the rest of the, their tenure in Buffalo, rather. If you would like to engage with Brian on Facebook and our other awesome Facebookers, you can go to facebook.com/BBillsMNY. That's BBILLSMNY. And you can, add that. You can like our page and follow it. And we post our podcast there and little comments and pictures. And we just have a grand old time. And that's that. Twitter.com/BBillsMNY is where you can engage with Paul during the game and sometimes during the week. So did you have anything worth sharing?
We had one on Twitter. We didn't have any follow-up to the Ask Me Questions, but there was one I had commented during the game or after the game, I was interested in getting your guys' reaction to this on how LaShawn McCoy and Trey White cleared out of the locker room before talking to reporters. And I mentioned that it was, disappointing that they didn't stand up and answer questions, and that can set a bad precedent from your leaders. And our old buddy Shapes, Wholesome LARPer, replied in disagreement, and I like disagreement. He said, speaking inauthentic platitudes to press is very non-essential in taking ownership over those you lead. You lead by performing, and in absence of performance, by being authentic to those directly affected in your organization behind closed doors. Now, I responded to that. There's merit in that point. However, I disagree, as one of the things players must navigate is a scrutiny of being a pro athlete and how much that affects your mindset and, in turn, your performance. As such, you need leaders who embody accountability and own up on bad days. So this is just kind of a long-winded way of asking, were you guys, am I a little overreacting to the fact that I'm not happy with White and McCoy for skipping the post-game conversations, or do you think it's like, it happens some weeks?
To me, you sound a little like you might be on your porch looking at kids on the lawn. I don't know that you've actually stood up and yelled at them to get off the lawn yet, but
I'm saying it with my glare at the very.
You got a real stink guy here.
He's glanced over at the cane that's kind of lying askance on the rocking chair. And he's looking at that.
They had bad days, and they certainly probably should have spoken, because typically you don't speak to everybody every week. I'd be more concerned I'm more concerned when you do the half-assed. I'm more concerned when you do a half-assed interview.
Right. I'm just I'm just going with the plays that are called, sort of.
That kind of thing is really bad. I'd be more concerned if, look, Trey White is an excellent cornerback, and he had a bad quarter, and he's a rookie, and so I think he's allowed to
second year.
Sorry, he had that last year. Remember, he had a bad game last year.
Yeah, against the Bengals. Yeah.
And he sort of got really angry and came back and was like super emotional about it. And so I think that's kind of how he deals with his bad games. And I'm not too worried about it so long as he keeps having good games and doesn't hurt other people myself. But Scott, I mean, if you want to.
I don't have obviously this is not something to super get bent out of shape about, but I do want to, I would say, to me, it's tough to take any one stance, any one incident out of too much context. If it was a regular thing where our highest paid and best players were not going in front of the media to talk about what happened during the game, I feel like I would start getting a little concerned about exactly, again, I don't feel like, part of me does I don't want to, it feels weird to say it, but because obviously I don't watch, I don't pay the tickets. I kind of watch here and there. I do pay for NFL Game Pass, so I guess, or we do. Or
you bought a couple shirts.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not like a super fan, but I feel like there are people out there who do want to know like what's going on with the team, and they didn't have to, they're not to like get super downer. I'll try and find a slightly less down example. Like they're not the cop who has to go back to the police station and explain, oh yeah, that armed robber, I let him get away. He beat me to the corner. He jumped over a fence. By the time I got over the fence, he got away. So that guy might go out there and rob somebody else, guys. I kind of blew it. So sorry. Like that's a tough conversation to have. I didn't play the football game well today. Let's just, that's something that we can all kind of understand and deal with. And if you're not, I think it lacks I don't want to say lacks maturity, but it lacks a little bit of perspective about the importance of what's going on. And I understand it's very important for them, and they get paid a lot of money to do that. But the part of the reason they get paid money to do it is because they are operating in this pressure-filled, media-rich environment, and they have a role to play in that on a kind of big level. So anyone like not no show, I'm not going to get too fed up of. But if it does happen consistently, then it's kind of like, come on, guys, like what are we doing here? Like this is a football game.
There you go.
Okay.
That's
discussions.
Do what do you guys think about running the read option with Josh Allen the rest of the season, or as just the offense?
I think that for the rest of the year, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to say, on board with it. You've got, you know, not only do you have the fake inside to McCoy do read option, you've got McKenzie who can be a part of that as well.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. You've got that third threat element between McCoy, Allen, and McKenzie.
I seriously considered putting in there, let's just run the Army triple option. Let's just run wingback. Like, let's go for
That'd be fun.
Whole 9 yards. Like, at this point.
That'd be really kind of fun. I'd like to see that just for a little bit.
At this point, that is sort of the offense for running. It's just that we're not calling it that because it is Josh Allen running 10 plays. It's 20 handoffs, and then a bunch of, admittedly, we do throw it more than Army and Navy do, but there's a bunch of kind of 50% completion rate on some moderate and deep long passes. Like that's basically their offense.
I am 4 yards and whatever gets them, and so I really I made clear earlier. I like until there's a reason for him not to run. I don't really care that he's running more than passing. I don't.
So the injury thing is not it for you.
Well, from what I understand, that there is no discernible difference between running quarterbacks and pocket passing quarterbacks getting injured. Like they get smashed in, like his position gets smashed all the time anyway. So, you know, you're liable to.
I mean, if he weren't scrambling and running and getting hit, he'd just be getting sacked anyway. Instead of getting hit just behind the line of scrimmage.
I guess I can understand the intuitive thought that you don't want him to get used to the idea of bailing on a play, because I think ultimately that probably will hurt you. But he's not just taking off and running. He is running to get himself open and throw a lot too. And when there's 10 or 15 yards in front of you, like that's fine. Like then you should be taking that. You should always take 10 to 15 yards. You know, like maybe if you'd stuck with it, you'd have a chance for 25 yards passing, but like take the 15 yards now. Like that's a lot. That's a big chunk. So,
I mean, I guess I would quibble with you there, because I feel like if you're designing an offense that is supposed to have some sophistication to it, you are setting things up. You are trying to cash in on certain plays and
certain looks and
things. And if you're not letting those things play out, then you've lost the opportunity cost. Because if you building, it's like when you do the dive with the jet sweep motion. Mm-hmm. At some point you hit him with that jet sweep motion because you set him up the whole game for it, and you need to cash in on that. Otherwise, the effectiveness of all those 2 and 3 yard up the guts with just the motion behind it isn't as big. So when you have those big hits built in, he has to know when to do those. Now, obviously, we don't know the play calls, but I think that's what and again, that's obviously different than a read option offense to a certain extent.
Yes, it
is. In terms
of
his mental process, he needs to understand enough of what they're the philosophy of the offense and how it's affecting the defense, that when you're hitting those big plays down the field, or you're doing those key routes that get people open, the defense realizes they have to adjust what they're doing. That's how the offense keeps moving, because if you're not hitting those, then you're not going to have 15-yard running lanes. You're going to have 10-yard running lanes. You're going to have 5-yard running lanes, and then you're not going to have any running lanes.
Well, my problem is, yes, I would just say, because you said the philosophy of the offense. Right now, the philosophy of the offense is a bit of a Cartesian doubting system when it comes to skill and talent and an offensive line. And so, you know, by all means, Josh Allen, scramble from the demon that could be torturing you, because, you know, if you're going to get creamed 15 yards down the field as opposed to creamed like in the pocket this year.
And there you go. Maybe
not that I want to put Descartes.
Maybe next maybe next philosophical.
I mean, we haven't brought up Descartes on a podcast in at least like 2 weeks.
At least
so. I mean, we were due. Yeah.
If he played for the Broncos, you could say you could put Descartes before the horse, but I don't really like. There's a joke there, and I just can't really make it. I don't know.
All right, we all have your book of Jake Plummer puns.
Let's just stop the podcast.
So,
yeah.
Let's just stop the podcast.
Right.
For 5 minutes, Frank will come up with a joke, and then we'll get back to you. All right?
Everyone just stand by. Like 6 donate puns that have reoccurred to him that he hasn't thought of in years.
Donate to my Patreon, and I'll come up with a Descartes joke for you. Maybe next platonic form. Let's get to the good stuff though. This day in Bills headlines, now a syndicated column, I suppose, appearing on multiple podcasts.
Syndicated segment.
I got the same royalties from Bills and Beers as I do from you guys.
That's good
on the podcast. So
that makes me feel better.
So all right, let's knock right into this day in Bills headlines. We've got looks like nine, maybe even 10. So this should be good. We'll move it along, and I think again we'll start off easy with the most recent and work our way to the harder one. So I don't want to say this one is easy, but I think you guys can get this one. All right, so we're going to go back to 2017, December 13th of 2017. Blank takes over starting weak side linebacker role for Bills. Says Leslie Frazier, we inserted him in the starting lineup Sunday, and he did a terrific job. We plan on, barring anything happening this week in practice, him starting against our next opponent, Miami.
Is that Matt Milano?
Matt Milano, well done.
All right, in chorus.
Yep. So that's credit to each of you. So this one, okay, this was a game back in 2015. The Eagles beat the Bills 23-20 on a Caleb Sturgis game-winning field goal with 3 minutes left. The challenge on this, I'm going to say, just go ahead, just both of you together, name any 5 players in this game who had played or would play for the other team at some point. And if you think that's too much of a challenge, asking for 5 players is less than half of the players that you could name.
Wow, okay. So Ronald Darby.
Ronald Darby is 1.
Kiko Alonso.
Kiko Alonso is 2.
LaShawn McCoy.
LaShawn McCoy is 3.
Jordan Matthews.
Jordan Matthews is 4. And what was that, Scott?
Jason Peters.
Jason Peters is 5. You guys just knocked that out of the park really quickly.
Who else is it?
Here are the other 6. Two Bills were hurt and did not play, but I'm counting them anyway. Nigel Bradham and Ron Brooks.
Okay, yeah.
And then long snapper John Dornbos. You probably don't remember. Oh, you do remember that.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's a Wisconsin guy, if I'm not mistaken.
Leotis McKelvin, of course.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Corey Graham, who's still with the Eagles to this day.
Wow. Okay.
And I think the one that I didn't know before I went into this, Cedric Thornton, who played for the Bills last season at points, was one that it might have even been earlier this season he was with the team. So 11
their entire secondary is basically.
Yes. This was what happens when because remember it's the Jim Schwartz connection. He's like, I'm going to take Brooks and Bradham and Graham and trade for Darby, and that'll be good.
I remember that. Yeah.
All right, well done. 2014, injured Bills safety blank out versus Packers. Says he has 47 tackles, 3 picks, and 1 forced fumble in 11 starts this season.
2014.
So you're looking for an injured Bills safety, and I will give you not even a hint so much as a stall technique for you guys to maybe come upon a name. Because he was hurt, Bakari Rambo started this game and had the best game of his career, bar none, where he intercepted Rodgers twice.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
So who was the original safety though?
Yeah. Who did he Wally Pip?
This is a name that you'll know the name for sure, but he's not one of those top of mind guys that comes up when you think of the safety position. Even though I think he was on the team for at least 4 years, maybe more.
This is way after Jabrari Greer.
Yep, Coach Greer.
God, I felt like I almost had like a Bills.
He currently plays. Oh, shocking! He currently plays for the Carolina Panthers. Of course, they all end up being Panthers or Eagles at some point. Played with the Bills from 2011 through 2014, 4 years. Then went to Tennessee. Now with Carolina.
2014, Tennessee. Oh man,
I
remember a big highlight where he picked up. All right, my last clue, and then I'll just give you the answer. He had a big fumble recovery, I remember, against the Patriots, which he just picked up at like the 20.
Sam Adams.
That was a good guess.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
It was Denoris Searcy.
Denoris Searcy, yes.
He was there forever, and I never thought about
it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
We're all role players, Denoris. Don't take any of it.
You're the Duke Williams of your year, 2014. All right, 2012. This one will be tough. This one would be tougher, but his name came up last week, so let's see if you can get it. 2012. Just call him inactive blank. Blank said this has been the most frustrating season of his career. The Bills are paying him $1.7 million this season to be the third-string quarterback to carry a clipboard. This Sunday in Toronto, he'll almost surely be inactive against his former team, the Seahawks.
Matt Flynn?
Oh, good guess. He was 2013, though. This is 2012. He was part of one of our trivia questions last week.
Tavares Jackson.
Jackson, yeah. You didn't even. And the reason they had the headline "Inactive Jackson" is for those of us who remember the action film Action Jackson.
Yeah.
All right, 2011. Bills defensive lineman blank tells AP he'll have back surgery. Says he told the Associated Press he'll have surgery within the next 2 weeks to repair a minor fracture in his spine.
What year was this again?
2011.
Arthur Moats.
No, I want to.
No, he didn't have surgery.
I feel like Scott is sniffing it.
I don't think it's Kyle Williams. I think he would have been a guy playing next to Kyle Williams.
It would be a guy playing next to Kyle Williams.
And then it's one of our tackles, and it was like, who
was pre-Darius?
It's pre-Darius. So, fuck. No, I don't.
I'll give the master hint. The correct answer should be, but isn't, Rob Gronkowski. What does this player have in
common? John McCargo.
No, Torrell Troop is the one.
Damn it! Right.
The guy they drafted one pick before Gronk went off the board, and they didn't.
I knew it was. Yes,
about his back.
Before that, it was Troop. Yeah, and he did have those back problems. Yes.
Yeah. All right, 2010. This is a Browns player. Browns running back blank hits 1,000 yards rushing, fumbles twice in 13-6 loss to Bills. Now, it was a reason a guy hitting 1,000 yards against the Bills. I don't know how to phrase this in a way that doesn't give it away or sound just wrong, but it is odd for a player of his particular ethnic background to hit 1,000 yards rushing.
Oh, he was a white guy. Danny Woodhead.
No. Let's see if Scott can remember the name of this.
Sorry, what year was it? I missed the year.
2010. He was. Let me try and get. So Frank got
it's the guy.
Part.
Oh, it's was it the Charge? No,
the Chargers guy. Or was that?
He was with the Browns now, but he was with the Browns at that point. He'd been with the Broncos, I believe, previously, and when he became the first white running back to rush for 1,000 yards, it'd be the first time in, I think, 25-ish years or so when he did it. I'm trying to look that up now.
Wow.
I don't really like how Paul sneaks all these white pride stats into our podcast. You just keep your politics to yourself, sir.
I debated putting this in here because this is how you get on watch.
You could just tried a different clue. It's fine. You are a wonderful person, and we're just teasing you.
I appreciate that. It's Peyton Hillis, the answer.
Okay. Yeah.
What was the answer?
Peyton Hillis.
Peyton Hillis, yes. Okay.
You could have been like, his name sounds a bit like a quarterback.
Yes.
No.
All right.
Never mind.
But we're going to move on from this part of the discussion.
Let's run from this comedian.
I'm actually going to learn how to edit this podcast just to change this whole last 5 minutes. All right. 2009. This was a game. The Bills beat the Chiefs. Imagine that. Not happening today. 16-10. 2009. Who was the Bills head coach that day?
Oh, it's going to be
I'm playing some dirty pool on this one.
I think you are. It's not. Is it Perry Fuel?
Oh, I can't fool Frank. Perry Fuel.
Yes.
Yeah. It was well played, sir.
Yes.
All right.
That's when they had like a mini surge for about 2 minutes with him.
They did. They fired Jerron. Field took over. They barely lost to a good Jags team. Then they beat a Dolphins team that had much better record. And then they went about Bills Lane and finished 6-10.
Yeah.
He's the defensive Anthony Lynn of his day.
Yes. Now, where is Anthony's with the Chargers? I don't know where Perry is. That's I heard he's with the Giants. But
I think we were podcasting when they gave Dick Duron his extension, but then didn't announce it for weeks because they kept losing.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. All right. 2000. We're going to skip a bunch of years here because nothing happened between 05 and 08. 2004. Blank passes on-the-job training with flying colors. Now, here's the context. For his first game back and for as long as he's been out, to play free safety out of the blue and make plays that he did was just outstanding on his part, said Bills coach Mike Mularkey. Not just his play, but him on the field is a big factor for our defense. And this was the day where the Bills held the Browns to 26 yards total the entire game. Literally the entire game, the Browns had 26 yards of offense. In interception, a sack, and a fumble recovery during the game.
2004. Safety.
2004. He is the
Dante Whitner.
Before
he is currently the executive vice president of football operations for the NFL.
Yes.
Troy Vincent.
Troy Vincent.
There you go.
That was
because he was a big union labor guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Parlayed that into a promotion.
All right. 2 to go. Blank led Carolina comeback ranks 4th in Bills history. So this player led a comeback against Carolina. He has joined Frank Reich and Todd Collins in the record books. The 18-point deficit overcome marked the 4th largest regular season comeback in team history and the largest since coming back from a 26-0 deficit versus Indy by Todd Collins in 1997.
What year was this again?
So quarterback, 2001. They finished. This was one of the Bills' 3 wins that season.
Alex Van Pelt.
And they beat Carolina, who won their first. Yeah. Alex Van Pelt, good job. The Alien versus Predator, as I call him. AVP.
Yes.
So yeah, this was year Carolina won their first game and then lost their last 15. So yeah. All right, last one. There are going to be a ton of hints on this one, and we'll see if you guys can get it. We're going to go back 1997. I didn't even utilize, thanks to Two Bills Drive for keeping a great repository of headlines. This was Google right here. This is before Two Bills Drive was even around. So 1997, Bills send blank to injured list. So here are the clues. The Buffalo Bills placed defensive end blank on injured reserve list Friday, ending his season and possibly his 15-year career. Bills were attending their team Christmas party Friday night and were unable to come. He had played 224 consecutive games in his career with Dallas and Buffalo before being sidelined following the Bills game in Indianapolis in September. At age 36, he's the oldest player on the Bills roster, he started for 8 years with the Cowboys and was a member of 2 Dallas teams that won Super Bowls. And in 95, he signed a 3-year deal with the Bills worth $3 million.
I don't remember this at all.
As Marv Levy replaced him with second-year tackle Sean Moran when the Bills switched the defense from 3-4 to 4-3. This player, who has 102.5 career sacks, was primarily a pass-rushing specialist while Moran could play in both defenses.
I'm trying to think who was on the Dallas defensive line. I mean, it was like Charles.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who kind of slid under the radar because Dallas had so many stars with, Norton and Haley. They had Leon Lett.
I was going to say, if it was Charles Haley, I would remember him playing for the Bills, and I can't think of who the guy I don't remember is.
He was in Tecmo Super Bowl. That's how I remember him. And it was, I should have noted too, like they were saying this could be the end of his career. It was. Once he never played after that. So his career did end.
I'll say Troy Aikman.
I'll say
yes. Little known for his defensive prowess, but he had it.
I'll say Egyptian President Anwar Sadat.
Oh, good guess.
It is. I'm trying. This is when I try to stall and come up with a pun that somehow ties Anwar Sadat to the actual correct answer. But I've Googled their names together, and I just broke Google. Like my computer, these 2 people are not connected. The answer is assistant football coach at the University of Colorado, Jim Jeffcoat.
Jim Jeffcoat. I see now. I remember him as a Bill. That's right. I do remember he was there.
Yep, 3 solid seasons with the Bills, and that was this day in Bills headlines for December 13th.
Bills Lions preseason week 4 per usual. None of the starters are going to play, but
and it's meaningless. So really, perfect.
Are the Lions any good? I have no idea.
They're like 6 and 7-ish, so they're in the hunt category. As Lions are always in the hunt, as any good nature person will tell you.
Yes,
but
5 and 8 actually, not 6 and 7.
It's the same. It's the same middling. My point is they're middling. So yeah.
Matt Stafford having a Matt Stafford year, 32-ish 100 yards, a lot of touchdowns, a decent number of interceptions. I don't know what is. I don't know anything about Detroit, and I didn't prepare because I don't really care because the season's over.
I know Matt Patricia is their coach, and they beat the Lions, and Stafford's their quarterback, and Calvin Johnson is retired.
They beat the Lions?
As in Barry Sanders.
You just said
the Lions beat the Patriots. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. The Matt Patricia and Lions beat the Patriots, but they do beat themselves every week. So
they have the Bills as 1-point favorites at home. So it's basically
what the hell is wrong with Vegas?
It's basically a pick'em game. Yeah.
Let's all not jump in together on talking about our excitement for Bills Lions.
Yeah. I'm looking like
Eric Ebron, right? Is he still with them?
Riddick.
I think Ebron's.
This is like. Did you guys see or read Stephen A. Smith today? They show you.
Yeah.
Ebron's moved on to the Colts, by the way, where he's actually good now.
Right.
I feel like Stephen A. Smith also prepared this Bills Lions preview because I'll just go out and say Barry Allen. Wow, Barry Sanders. Barry Allen, a little bit better than Barry Sanders at running. What can I say? Barry Sanders is, not coming through those doors, guys. Nor is Rodney Peete. Who is your favorite non-Barry Sanders Lion, Scott?
I mean, the UConn boy, Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah.
I like
the 0-16 quarterback. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like an actual player, Megatron was really
great.
Good. He was for a while there. Like, it didn't really get much better than him. Like, he was pretty much top of the line. He was state of the art. He was fun to watch.
He was like the epitome of just throw it and good things will happen. What about you, Paul?
That is a good question. I'd semi-cheat and say I like Pete Metzelaars, but he, of course, is a former Bill, so really I don't think I can quite get away with that. I remember the quarterback, Mike McMahon. I always thought he was like the perfect amount of mediocre for Detroit. I feel like he was what Detroit really deserved and got. 44.5% completion percentage, 3-11 career record, 2,867 yards, 15 TDs to 21 interceptions. To me, he was emblematic of Detroit. And he was also from North Allegheny, Pennsylvania. I have a lot of friends from that area. So Rutgers boy, we're almost the exact same age. So, we've got a lot of commonalities. So I'm going to go with Mike Edward McMahon.
Okay.
And I didn't make up his middle name as a pun. His middle name is actually Edward. So he is Ed McMahon.
Very nice. You are correct, sir. I always liked Bobby Night Train Lane. Like, as
you went with a really good player, yeah.
Yeah, like that was always a fun name. And I had Andre Ware's rookie card, so I always liked him, even though he did nothing of consequence. And then the paper lion himself, George Plimpton, New England socialite who joined their practice squad and played with them to write a book, which is
who I should have mentioned? Jerry Ball. I feel like if the Bills had him, they would have won the Super Bowl instead of Jeff Wright at nose tackle. But oh well,
that's how close it was.
Yeah,
Wayne Fonts and anyway, based on all of that, I say the Bills will. I think the Bills will win this week. I think that they have to get. I think they're going to get one more win, and I don't know where else it's going to come other than this week. This is like, of all the meaningless games to win, like this is the most meaningless. It's like an NFC North team at home, so. I'll take the Bills 16-13 over the Lions.
I will also take the Bills. I will take the Bills 20-18 with 6 Matt Prater field goals to assist me in winning my first playoff game in fantasy football this weekend.
Yes, we're all rooting for the Appleton.
In Russia, Bills play you.
Exactly. Is that the name of your team?
Yes.
Excellent.
This is a tough one. I'm going to go against the grain. I'm actually going to pick the Lions in this one. But again, when it's mediocrity versus mediocrity, I usually pick the home team, but I think Lions might just be slightly better. I'm going to agree with the 6 field goals. I'm going to say 18-17 Lions in this one. I think the Bills are just going to be 2 touchdowns and a Jordan Gay field goal who they're going to pull off of the roster onto the roster this week. And that's going to be all the scoring.
He's available.
I'd like to amend my score to 16-13. Or did I say 6? I think I did say 16-13 because there won't be any field goals from the Bills. They'll go for 2 twice and they'll make it both times.
And kudos to Scott, by the way, for picking the Dolphins score perfectly.
There you go. 2 weeks ago. Right. We didn't get to talk about that last time.
Yep.
Well, if you'd like to talk to us more, we've given you our Twitter and our Facebook, BBillsMNY, BBillsMNY@gmail, and you can search Buffalo Bills maybe next year. We're on the Anchor app. We're in all of your feeds you can get your podcasts on. We're co-starring on other podcasts now. I'm waiting for someone to call Scott to do 3 stars, and then it will be truly revealed that I have no talent, and I just sit here and let you guys do all the work.
Except for pulling all this together and recording it, and figuring out where we're hosting the pod and everything else that you do behind the scenes.
Guest producing.
Right. I'll be behind the scenes. Just sort of vaguely saying something kind of funny and then directing it back to you.
You'll be the board op on some podcast.
Right. Well, that could be a big thing. That's like the guy Greg Garcia, who does My Name is Earl, and he had another hit show like what was that one on Fox? It wasn't Raising Arizona. He was the board op for the local ESPN 980 and the Tony Kornheiser show, and he went on to now be. So maybe I'll do that.
Yes, dear.
Not Yes, Dear.
It was executive producer of My Name is Earl, Yes, Dear, The Guest Book, and Raising Hope.
Raising Hope. That's the one I was thinking.
It says he also he developed one of the pilots that was picked up by CBS, The Millers, which I don't know if that's still on the air. Oh, it is.
It is on still?
It is, according to this, yeah. Oh, no, never mind.
They had like 2 seasons. Yeah. Maybe. Because that was a Will Arnett show that. Yeah. Anyway, he's very talented and started as a board op, and I'm only just like much older than he ever was, and much less talented. But we can discuss all that another time. You know how to get a hold of us. We'll be here next week talking, Bills Lions results, and looking forward to Bills whoever. What is it, Patriots after this or?
God, oh boy, yep.
I have no idea. Yeah, sure.
Go into the day before Christmas Eve. We got to talk about, we'll be talking about the Patriots game during Christmas week.
Well, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll talk about Christmas.
Motherfuckers. Yeah.
Yeah, we've just got New England and then the season finale against the Dolphins. So maybe we'll just talk about who our favorite New England players were over the years. See how that goes.
John Stevens. Running back, late 80s.
Spoiler, save it for next week. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Have a great night. Until then, I'm Frank.
I'm Scott.
I'm Paul.
Good night, everyone.